If you can start off from a prompt and then go to a V1 or a V0, then you can iterate from there.
I know what AI Slop is, and it's the AI gradient.
It's like code that it does the thing that you want it to do, but it doesn't scale past there. Or it's just the fact that when it comes back, it doesn't fit your sort of formatting and linting in the way that you write code.
How do you define AI slop?
I think it's kind of two-form, right? Like one is where it spits out almost unmaintainable code, right? It's like code that it does the thing like that you want it to do, but it doesn't scale past there. Like you would have to refactor it in order to get to scale past there. Or it's just the fact that when it comes back, it doesn't fit your sort of like formatting and linting in the way that you write code.
I think I can actually one-up you. I know what AI Slop is, and it's the AI gradient. We've all seen it where you go to a site and every like text card has like this really, really raunchy, like it's always like a purple orange or like a red green or something like that.
You're just describing lovable like straight off the bat.
It's all of them. Not V0
Yeah.
because it like kind of sticks to
We're
the
not allowed to
shad
use colors,
scene. Yeah. But like Bull, Lovable, all these, they're just like the AI gets too happy with the colors. And what I've found myself doing is whenever I'm using like V0, I like go to, I don't know how other people pronounce it, but like the Colors site, the COOLORS site. How do you pronounce that?
I always pronounced it coolers, but that's not quite right either.
Goose, how do you pronounce it?
I don't know, colors.
Disowned.
I know, right? And then I make like a color system from that and I paste that into V0 and I'm like, use this as your things. And it looks a little bit better, but that AI gradient is just, I see that and I'm like, ooh, that's nasty.
There's this sort of old guideline in design, which is that you're meant to, when you're doing product design, you're meant to design without color first because you want like hierarchy and information architecture and that sort of stuff to work. I guess A, for the colorblind, but also like B, just, if I took away all the color, I should still be able to like understand how to use this product. And then you layer in color very thoughtfully. But I don't think the AI is sort of like what LLMs can produce doesn't quite have that same mentality or that guideline. It's just like, well, color would help here, so we're going to chuck it in.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Today's episode is sponsored by Inbound, my own product. Inbound is the best way to send and receive emails all through a super developer-friendly API and SDK. You can set up webhooks on email addresses to trigger certain actions or even integrate with your existing AI platform. Try it out today at inbound.new.
Well, bringing it back to the code, you describe yourself in a very interesting way. You're like at this intersection between design and engineering. And we've had a few guests like this, and like a few of them were at Vercel, which is interesting. Design engineering, very, very interesting intersection. How the hell did you end up in this very unique position?
It definitely wasn't by choice. I mean, I sort of started out as a front-end engineer. And then my goal was never to like code. It was just to be able to make things. And like coding is always a means to an end, or it was always a means to an end for me. It's just like, I want to produce this site or I want to produce this app. And there was no like type in the app that you want here and I'll generate it for you, 10 years ago or however long it was. So code was the only way to get there. So I learned how to do that so I could make stuff. But then the stuff that I was making whenever I, shipped it or I gave it out to people, I was sort of embarrassed by it because it's like the front end tech was just top notch. It was using Angular at the time or even Ember. That's how long ago it was. Yeah. But it always looked crap. So I eventually just tried to invest in like, it wasn't design at the time. It was just looking at other sites and then trying to imitate what they did well. Like it was small things, right? Like what colors do I use? How do I do shadows? How do I do spacing and layout and that sort of stuff? And then eventually I just got a really big appreciation for the thought that goes into like, the design of a product. It was probably Palantir that set me straight on that. They were just like, no, product design is actually a thing and here's how you do it.
Like the guidelines set by like a corporate type thing sort of just like got you into that sort of mindset, or like you just discovered that on your own?
It was more so like the mentality of the design team that worked there. So at the time, product design was still like an emerging sort of field. It was just like web design before then, and there weren't as many like structures around design systems or like designing for an ecosystem of products or a multi-product, like micro front end level application. It was also patented. But I think Palantir at the time, they were very forward thinking and they're like, no, they were one of the original companies that I worked with who had their own design system. And so, yeah, that sort of like blended the two together for me. Like there isn't that much of a difference if you think about it system wise between design and the code that you write.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, because it's often, I've seen a lot where it's like you learn really well by going to a company that has like these really strict guidelines. And then once you learn that and understand why they're there, then you can go to like a startup and like build it from the ground up. But I wanted to ask you, because obviously with this next age of like web, the most predominant sort of, I guess, design system is Shad. Right? What do you think about Chad CN? Like, not the guy. He's awesome. What do you think about the system?
So I quite like it. I understand the sort of different perspectives on it though, because starting on the side that, I'm not with, I guess people look at it like another Bootstrap, right? Or another untitled UI, if you've seen that. People use it, but they don't customize it. And so every website on the internet, you can tell if it's a Shad CN UI site because it looks like Shad CN UI, or you can tell if it's a Bootstrap site or a untitled site. But fundamentally, that's not the way I look at it. I think what he's done is he's created almost like an ecosystem where, because the components are open source, because you can copy and paste them, and because it creates this shared CSS variable system that everyone can use, it just opens us up to skip past almost like the implementation details of like complex components and then pull them in and then customize it to the way that we want them to be.
Now, what do you think of it using OKLH as default, with no wrapper to be identified by VS Code?
That's slightly hectic. I'm still trying to wrap my head around OKLCH colors. I'm like, I barely got my head around like HSL, and then he like made the switch again. I'm just like, listen, I'm going to trust in Lisan Al-Gaib.
Going back to engineering plus design, I am once again going to inquire about the process, right? Like you get your design figured out, then you go ahead and just build React components. How does that work?
I don't usually get the design figured out. I just know, I'm trying to think of a good example here. Tersa, for example, is this like open source like Flora. It's this open source Flora alternative where you could like connect nodes together and then like run AI on them and stuff like that. I had no idea what that was going to look like when I started. All I knew was that like it had to be sort of like canvas based, and that it had to like, have models and drop downs and stuff like that. So I go straight into the code. I start with like functionally, how is this thing going to work? Try to bring all the functionality in, use Shad CN components just straight off the bat because it's just quicker to get it up and running. And then after that, I feel like once it's there, I don't have the blank canvas fear, which is the same fear that, designers get when they get into like Figma or Sketch and it's just completely empty. Like I've got something to look at, and it's almost like a redesign at that point, right? It's much easier to think of a product when you're designing it as like a redesign than designing from
how can I tweak this instead of how can I create this? It's a lot easier on the mind. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It's one of the things that those like the AI, like V0 and Bolton and Lovable and stuff are great at as well. It's like if you can start off from a prompt and then go to a V1 or a V0, then you can iterate from there. It's a lot easier when you can see it because it's easier to make tweaks to something when it's just there already.